Do you have all the things they say should make you happy, but you still feel unfulfilled? Are you always doing what you should do? Or do you never feel like you're enough? And you want to feel better, more fulfilled, more aligned, and more comfortable in your own body? Then this is the show. Scared as fuck and doing it anyway, showing up authentically. My name is Paula Schuster, and I'm a self-love and authenticity coach. My life completely changed when I started loving myself again, putting myself first, and being true to me. This is the show that's going to help you get out of being stuck, out of the cycles of self-abandonment, and help you choose yourself without feeling selfish. It will give you not only inspiration, but awareness, courage, and insights to make changes and live your life for you. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Scared as Fuck and Doing It Anyway, Showing Up Authentically podcast. I'm your host, Paula Schuster, and I just want to say thanks for being here. How are you doing? How are you feeling today? I'm asking this for a couple of reasons. One, because I just want to start asking as a way to show you that I care about you, because I do. Thank you for being here. And also because there's a fucking shit ton going on astrologically, and we as humans are feeling it. There's no way around it. We're in eclipse season full on, and we just had a full moon lunar eclipse, and we're already in the intense energies of the total solar eclipse that's happening on April 8th. So there's a lot going on, and the energies are definitely strong. As my astrologer, Pam Gregory, puts it, we are in a very powerful energetic and astrological force for the second half of March that's building into April, and April is a peak month because of the solar eclipse. I know it's different for me to bring this in, but I'll get to my point. You'll see how it connects to authenticity. So I'm not an astrologer, but I like dabbling in it, and I like listening to them, and I like knowing what's going on and how it can possibly affect me, so I can give myself more grace around my feelings and emotions and around how I'm feeling physically. Some of the cosmic happenings and energies can make us feel really tired sometimes, or drained, or feel like we don't want to do anything at all. And it's helpful for me to have that context from my life to sometimes help explain how I'm feeling or what's happening in my life. So just a little bit about what's happening for us related to this eclipse season. The lunar eclipse in Libra was on the 25th, so just a few days ago. And any lunar eclipse represents an ending or a closure or completion of some kind. And it's doubly emphasized because the moon is conjunct with the south node, and the south node is all the stuff we're leaving behind. The north node is always looking forward to our future. So the south node is all the stuff we're leaving behind, habit patterns, behaviors, those things. And also one of the big themes around Libra is relationships. So we might have relationships ending, or we might have changing dynamics in our relationships. And this can be relationships of any kind: romantic, friendships, business relationships, whatever, any kind of relationship. And it's also helpful to remember that when we have relationships ending, that's okay, and there's a reason for it. We don't always walk all of our journey with the same people in our lives. Some people are only in our lives for part of the time, and we move on. And I know that can be hard to accept sometimes, but that's just how life is, and it's okay. And we're all evolving on this planet at different rates. So that can mean relationships come to an end. And if this is happening to you and you have a relationship ending, try to, be dispassionate about it and just bless that person, send them love, and move on. Libra also has to do with people pleasing, which is how it connects in with authenticity for me. It has to do with people pleasing and compliance and sort of the don't rock the boat or go along with the crowd kind of thing. And this energetic is changing, thank fucking God, because we all need that to change. And again, this is the main reason why I'm bringing astrology into my podcast at this time, because I'm a recovering people pleaser, and I'm healing that old part of me. And with this podcast and my coaching, I'm helping other people, or my intention is to help other people move away from that dynamic too. People pleasing is essentially lying, because we are not being authentic to ourselves when we're doing it, and it certainly doesn't serve us. It's part of always trying to be the good girl or the good boy, or not saying what we really mean or how we really feel, or going along with things that don't really resonate with us, which is essentially self-abandonment. And it has to stop. It just has to stop for each of us. And I'm really loving how the stars are supporting us with it right now. I think that's just cool. So the astrology, the planets, the cosmos are helping us move away from this people-pleasing business, which, as we know, we've all been conditioned to be this way all of our lives, especially women. But we're waking up to our sovereignty, to our inner authority, our own agency more and more, and our own authenticity. And if we've been over compliant in any relationship, we're starting to feel like that's not in our highest good, and we're moving on. And that's a good thing. My whole point here is we're impacted by what's happening in the cosmos, and it provides context for us and what's happening in our lives. So it makes sense to pay attention to it. And we have to stop this people-pleasing business. And we're getting an extra boost from the planetary energy right now. So it's an even better time to break those patterns. So there you go. There you go. That's my little tangent, and I hope it helped you. And if you want help breaking your people-pleasing patterns, let me know. Schedule a free discovery call on my website, reikiflowmn.com. And let's see if we're a good match for working together. Okay, back to my guest this week on the podcast. I have Adrienne Swanson with me on the podcast today, and she's super real and down to earth, and she has great energy, and I love her enthusiasm, her spunk, and her genuineness. She's just very genuine. I also love the things that she shares that have helped her along the way in changing her life and changing her perspective and her thought patterns. And I especially love all the things that she says about hiring a coach and how it benefited her. So if you have any doubts about hiring a coach, this is the episode for you. I think it's so funny and cute how she tells that story, a couple of stories about her coach. So listen up. Adrienne is in direct sales with Tastefully Simple. And this Tastefully Simple journey started for her as a way for her to stay at home with her kids and not have to work a 9 to 5. And her dedication and leadership in that space have propelled her to the top 10 in the nation. So what we're saying is Adrienne is no half-ass operation. I love that. And she was also compelled to share her personal success and blessings. So she started her Adrienne Talks podcast, which I love that name. And that's, a platform that helps her guide individuals in transforming their mindset for entrepreneurial success. So I love how she's generous and giving back. I also love how her mission is to inspire women to recognize the power within themselves and to help them create their dream lives. We could all use more women in the world thinking and acting like this, huh? And uplifting and supporting other women. Yes to this. She's just an awesome leader and a catalyst for positive change. And she's just a gem, just a gem. And it was so fun talking and connecting with her. And I hope you all enjoy our conversation. So without further ado, here's Adrienne Swanson. Hi, Adrienne. Welcome to the podcast. I'm so glad that you're on with me today.
Oh, Paula, thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Awesome. Just for everybody, Adrienne and I met in our podcasting class and connected. And so here we are.
Yeah, it was so great. We got to meet so many fun people.
Absolutely. So Adrienne, start off by just telling us a little bit about who you are and who Adrienne is and what you do.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So basically, I live in St. Louis, Missouri, and I have a husband and 2 kids and 4 dogs because we're crazy. Um, we love our puppies. And so I started in direct sales when I had the kids. I decided I didn't want to work a 9 to 5 anymore. I wanted to be able to raise my kiddos. And so I've been doing that. And I started about 2 years ago a podcast about direct sales because I just have such a passion for it. No matter what company you're with, it's all about growth and learning to go outside your comfort zone and being authentically you, which is, what we're talking about here today too. And I just think it's such an amazing spot for, people, women and men, to be able to have your non-traditional 9 to 5 job and learn so much about yourself and other people. So I decided to start a podcast for anybody in direct sales. And a lot of entrepreneurs are on there too, just because all of it's kind of the same, right? Like, you're starting your own business and you gotta, you're working for yourself. And so there's things you have to do a little bit differently than when you're at a 9 to 5. Um, so
That's
yeah, that's kind of my quick story, the quick version of Adrienne. That's what I do. So Adrienne Talks is my podcast, and I'm with Tastefully Simple. That's my direct sale.
nice. So,
Yeah.
I'm curious, was that scary to do direct sales? Like for me, that would be scary.
Oh, it was so, I mean, honestly, like, it was so scary, and I actually kept a side job. I did accounting before this. I'm a numbers girl, kind of a math nerd,
Yeah.
and I did this, um, I did that for a long time. I held on to both because I was so afraid to, like, jump in and do the thing, right? Like, it really freaked me out, and so I was like, "Well, as long as I keep this, I can do this too." So I worked, like, a couple days a week at my accounting job instead of full time, and finally, I learned a lot more about myself and what I really enjoy, and that having I'm sure most people have seen it if you're in the, mindset world, is Steve Harvey saying you just got to jump, you got to trust yourself, and you got to jump because you're never going to fly if you don't jump. And so I jumped and I quit my accounting job and went full Tastefully Simple. And then that's when I also started my podcast, just so that I could help other people realize what I needed to realize, that, like, holding on to something for a safety net is basically a way of delaying your ability to fly.
Oh, I love that. That's really powerful. Delaying your ability to fly.
Yeah. Yeah, because I think we all try to do that, right? We try to keep a safety net, and it's like, the thing is like, if you have a safety net, you're never going to truly jump. You're just, like, dangling a foot over the edge, right? But you're still holding back to something on ground. So it's just kind of been the thing that totally changed my life when I finally just let that go and did what I really wanted to do.
Yeah. Oh, so cool. So cool. So there must have been some growth like along that path, right? Along that journey of when you first started and we're doing both and then let that go finally. And I'm sure part of that had to do with authenticity. Can you talk to
Mhm.
us about that?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that's the hard part, right? I felt like in order to have a career, I was supposed to work a 9 to 5, right? Like, something was told to me my whole life, not by, I can't even specifically place it, right? But, like, you hear, like, you need a steady paycheck, you need, but you hear the things, right? You need insurance, you need the blah, 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 all these things.
Yep.
And so you hear it. And so it becomes a reality in your head that, like, that's where you have to be. And so, honestly, I didn't even necessarily, when you're younger, I didn't even necessarily want to have kids. And I definitely was not going to stay at home. I was going to be a career girl, right? Like,
Yep.
so, because that's what I was kind of told. And so when when I held my son in my arms, like, something happened. Obviously, as a lot of people say, you don't understand till it happens. And I was like, "Oh, no, like, I need to be around for this. Like, I wanna see this. I wanna be a part of this." So my husband and I talked about what we could do and how it would look and what I would need to make, in order to not have to go into a 9 to 5, by the time you pay for daycare and all that stuff. And so we figured it out, and I was like, "I'm gonna give this direct sales thing a try, to see if I can do it." And I was scared, and I didn't do anything for like 4 years. I did the bare minimum to make that amount of money that we needed to make so that I could stay home. Like, it was literally the bare minimum. And then gosh, I just realized, like what you said, I was holding back, right? Like I wasn't being authentically me because I really did love it. I wanted other people to have the opportunity, but I was afraid like that they would think I'm whatever, sales. Oh, you're pushy, you're that whatever, all that nonsense again that you're told your whole life. If you're in sales, you're pushy or, all those things.
Yep.
And so I finally had to realize like I genuinely care about my clients and I genuinely care about my team. And this is not me being pushy or fake or any of the things. This is me loving what I do. And I am allowed that in my life, right? Like I'm allowed to let that love show. And if somebody doesn't like it, I'm like, that's great. You don't have to. I'm here for the people who want to know more, who want to, get dinner on the table, who want to cook, who want to stay home with their kids, who want a different side gig, who want to retire with a side gig, whatever it is. I can be there for them. And so it was really hard to shift those thoughts though, because there are lots of negative thoughts about direct sales out there and sales in general. And really salespeople are just sharing their love of something, right? Like that's what they do. I mean, it's not a bad thing. So there was a lot of work that had to be done around myself and worrying about others and just being authentically me, which means I get to have fun and be goofy and do the things I like to do instead of thinking I have to be sitting behind a desk doing my job 9 to 5. And I got to be there for my kids and raise my kids. So
Yeah.
there was a lot of work and there was a lot of tears and blood, sweat, and tears, right? Isn't that what they say?
Yeah.
That's what I feel like it was. Just a lot of um, working through those thoughts that I had, like you said, to kind of shift the thoughts, like change them so
Yeah.
that I could do what I wanted to do.
And look at you. You're just like a bubbling personality. I love it. Like you just shine. And I can't even imagine you sitting behind a desk doing accounting. Like, oh my God, like like it just seems like, oh, what a waste. It's sort of earlier, what was it that you said? You have to jump in order to fly or something like,
Yeah.
it's just like when we're afraid to be our authentic self and come forward with what we really want. It's like, we are like keeping it from the world. We're keeping like these gifts from the world
These
because look
gifts,
how beautiful
yes.
you are. And I am sure accounting was not serving you like this is.
Well, I appreciate that. That's very sweet. And it's true. It was like once I got to do what I wanted to do and step away from that, and trust me, it sounds like it was an overnight thing, you guys. I was literally struggling between this and the accounting job for years. I'm talking 10 years of like doing half and half and not totally jumping. There was a lot of work that had to be done. And it really came down for me to gratitude. We think so scarce and we think so negative. And I really was kind of, when I look back on who I was then, I did have a little bit of a victim mentality, like things were happening to me. And when I realized I can make things happen, like I am the one that has the power to make what I want happen. And this was a lot of work. Like it was, I had to work on my mindset. I had to wake up every day feeling gratitude instead of worrying about, you know, anything like who's leaving my kid out, who's leaving me out, all those silly things that we focus on that mean nothing. If somebody wants to leave you out, let them leave you out. You don't want it anyway, right? Like, but when you're in it, it feels so heavy, right? Like, and I had to start learning, if I start looking at the gratitude, the people I do have, the people who do invite me into their life, people like you that are just like, hey, like, come talk to me, share your story.
Yeah.
When you can see and have gratitude for those people, the other ones that are in that spot, it just doesn't affect you, right? Because you see all the beauty out there. And so it was really a journey of, like you said, authenticity, but also gratitude. Just we all have a lot and we take it all for granted, right? Like the other day, our water got turned off. We didn't have water for a few hours. You would have thought, we were like, gosh, we are not grateful for water enough. Like, I mean, how many times we went to use it and we were like, oh, the water main broke, down the street or whatever. I was like, my gosh, they're the little things we take for granted every day, much less the big things, right? So,
So I what you just said was powerful. And can you so it really started with gratitude for you
mhm.
and a mindset shift. And so how did you do that? Like, did you just like make a decision one day and a commitment to yourself, and say, okay, I am doing this, I am changing my thoughts. And then how did you go about doing that? Or like tell us how you made that shift.
Honestly, I know everybody, gets like ugh, about this, but I finally said I'm putting money into myself, and I got a coach and I got a life coach because we're in our world every day and we aren't realizing all the things that filter through our mind or the things we say. Like, right, we say things out loud and we don't even realize we're saying it. Our subconscious, like, we're just saying things. And having someone repeat things back to me that I said, I was like, I said that? Like, you don't even realize, right? You need somebody with that bird's eye view. And so she could say, like, you just said this. And I was like, what? And then we would really dive into it. Like, where's that coming from? Because these things are so ingrained in our head, and nobody wants to, everybody's like, oh, life coaching, blah. But that's how you can change yourself, is to have someone who's really looking and listening at what you're saying and can start showing you what deep down. She does. My first life coach described it to me, and I love this. It's like a ball going back and forth, right? So for years you've had this, like, you have to work a 9 to 5, right? And this ball going back and forth, creating this giant rut, right?
Yeah.
And so in order to change that, you have to start filling it in with new thoughts. It doesn't just happen with one thought. Like, for the years it was making this rut, you have to like refill that in and change that whole thought process. And it doesn't happen overnight. And I love that because one of the people I coach right now says it all the time. It's not going to happen overnight. I'm like, you're right. You can't, people want it to happen right now. And these thoughts and these feelings have been ingrained in us. And I think you and I talked about this when we had, a pre-conversation. These things come from being a kid. Like, there are things that you didn't even realize you created thoughts about and became a reality for you. And until you start really diving into it, it's just going to keep it just kind of keeps creating that rut, and that rut, you've got to be the one to change it. So,
Absolutely. I
yeah,
love that sort of visual that you gave, because it's really like, think of it as a neural pathway in your brain, because it's deep and
so
it's
deep.
a pattern, and you have to build a new one, like you said, like fill that one in and start a new one, and then practice is what then makes the new gratitude, positive, whatever it is, the new mindset, practice, because we practiced all the negative stuff and all this stuff for so many years, right? So we have to give ourselves grace
The
and realize
grace.
we're learning and say, okay, well, I'm new at this. And so it's going to take me a little bit to practice this so I get good at it too. Um,
Yes.
I'm curious, I'm a life coach. And so I'm curious why you chose a life coach instead of like a therapist.
Um, for me, and the reason I do life coaching is I like that it's the whole. So there are times in my life coaching, because I'm direct sales, where it's more business coaching, right? Like, I want this, how do I get it? And I help them business coach. But really, in order to get it, there's things that are standing in their way, right? And so that's where the life coaching comes in. So for me, it was like, I need both, because some days I'm ready to get emotional, and some days I'm like, I need to get some shit done. And oh, sorry.
No,
Are we
you're
allowed to
fine.
say that on yours? Oh,
Oh
yeah, of
yeah.
course.
It's in the,
Your title. I have a tendency to, have sailor words come out of my mouth. But, I want to get some stuff done, right? And so I like having the balance of both. That, like, because that's what life really is. Life is a balance of your entire like everything. So some days it might be about your family, some days it might be about business. And some days I might just need pointers. I might need actual pointers, not necessarily diving into my feelings on something, but just like, how many people did you ask? What did you do this last week? Those types of things. So I like the whole of it. And that's why I started doing this, that I can be a business and a life coach, because no matter what you say in in your life, whatever's holding you back, it's down deep. It's one of those ruts that we've created that we have to fill in. But you also don't know what those are until you start setting goals, and all of a sudden you're trying to reach goals and something comes up and you're like, oh, that's weird. I think that, people aren't going to do this, or I'm not going to do that. And those are where you have to start delving in. And that's where, a life coach can be like, so why aren't you doing this? What's stopping you? And then that's where, like, well, I'm afraid that they're gonna, and then we work through those thoughts. So I think that it's just important. And I get, and that's what I love about life coaching too, right? There's lots of life coaches, and different people are needed at different times. Like you said, sometimes a therapist is needed when you go through something traumatic. and you just need to be dealing with the emotion. And me, like I said, I'm more of a business and a life coach. I want to be able to help you get stuff done, but I also want to be able to help you with your mindset.
Yeah.
Other people are just mindset based, right? There's health coaches, wellness. And different times in your life, you're going to need different people. And so I think that's what's beautiful about it is, I always feel people are presented to you when you need them, right?
Oh,
The
for
coaches
sure.
that you need will present them like all of a sudden somebody's going to say something, you're going to be like, I need that. And that's what's beautiful about it. So,
Yeah. And, I always say too, like, they tell us, when you're becoming a life coach, you need your niche, right? Your niche
yes,
so that you can, market yourself in that way, and get clients. But then like once you get clients, you're really coaching them on all the aspects of everything, right?
of course.
You draw them in maybe with a niche, and it really becomes everything about their life. And so I bounce back and forth on that. I don't know, if you do as well, or if you just say, this is the kind of life coach I am. Like lately I've been saying I'm a self-love and authenticity coach because that's what's really present for me. That's what my
Hmm.
podcast is about. It's my recent journey, those kinds of things. But I really like teeter on the edge of, of narrowing it like that.
Well, I think it's the reason I think it's good to narrow a little bit is just because like I said, people are going to find you when they're needed. I believe in attraction. I believe in the attraction vibes, like what you're putting out is what's going to come to you. And so I think being authentic, like you said, knowing, and I know that I like a little bit more both. Some people just want to deal with emotions, some people just want a business coach. I kind of say I like doing both. I feel like on a call it should be both. And so it's who I am. It's me being authentically me. If you want me to just handle your emotions all the time, I can easily do that. But I feel like more comes out when you're talking about what you're doing day to day or how you're working your business. So for me, it's the way I like to bring it out in people that like it doesn't, but that's who I am too. I'm very logical with emotion. So like I like the logic side of it. So for me, that's the accounting person in me, right? So for me, I just know I need to be authentically me and know that like this is how I do things. So people who do things like me will be attracted to me and I'll be able to help them. I can help anybody. And I think sometimes people do come that aren't in your niche, right? They find you and they want to, and they bring out the best in you and you help bring out you learn a new thing, right?
Yeah.
Um, but that's kind of why I had to get a little bit more specific because I wanted to be authentic to how I got here and what, like, I don't know that if you would have presented as just an emotional life coach that I ever would have got into life coaching. Um, but the person was a lot like me. Like, I'm going to help you through your business, but we're going to have these mindset things along the way, right? Like, it's going to be a dual thing. And I remember I was like, because again, we all start somewhere. I was like, oh, yeah, okay. Like, you're going to change my thoughts, whatever. Right. Like, and then I realized how much power there is in that. And so I think, that's just everybody's journey is different. And some people are born knowing they can change their thoughts. And people like me waited till they were in their 40s to start changing their thoughts. So, you know, um, we just all have our own paths. So I do think that that's what's great about it is like, again, back to your authenticity. If you're authentically you and presenting yourself the way you are, the people who need you will find you, you know?
Yeah. And so many other things happen too, right? Like just that magic opens up and just starts happening,
Right.
like serendipitous situations, people, things just breadcrumbs from the universe are just lighting the path, glitter on the path is what I always call everything's
It's
glitter on the path.
it's so true. And like, in the podcast, it's like you meet these people from all over you wouldn't be able to meet, which is one thing I love about podcasting and where our world is now that we can hop on Zoom and, you know, connect with people we couldn't before. But also like just it the growth, right? Like you said, like you can talk to someone and just take these nuggets of like amazing wisdom and apply them. So
Yeah, growth and expansion too.
mhm.
So you said gratitude was a big part of how you did, you were able to sort of lead your mindset shift, I guess.
Mhm.
What other like tools and practices helped you along the way?
I mean, I think a lot of it was just when you have a thought, it's just a thought. So my brother and I had this conversation one time, and he was saying, you get to check your thought at customs, right? And I was like, that's interesting. He's
Mhm.
like, you can decide if you want to take it with you, if you want to leave it behind. You get to pick, right? And I just think that so many people don't understand that. And one of the big um, examples I use is like, say you and I get in a car accident right now, right? Like we get in a car accident, you and I both, and we walk away. And I'm like, oh my God, my parents are gonna kill me. Right. I'm a teenager. I just am using my parents are going to kill me. My insurance is going to go up. This is terrible. What am I going to do today? And you walk away. Thank God it was just a fender bender. Woo, that's great. Like I can get this fixed. This is not a big deal, right? The same exact situation. It's just the way we look at it, right? And so you get to check that thought. I get to sit here and say, do I want to stress out about insurance or do I want to be thankful that I'm not injured? Right. Or like, and I'm just using this as one example of millions. Like, so
Yep.
even when we talked about people who, you know, don't accept you, do I want to sit here and go, what could I do to make them accept me? Or do I want to say, they can go accept their people and I'll find my people, right? Like every single thought, and I didn't know this for so many years, right? That I was choosing to focus on the person who wasn't accepting me and not all these amazing people who were accepting me, right? Like, here's my friends, and I'm focused on this one person who doesn't like me. Who cares, right? Like, I wish I could go back and shake myself. Um, but you have to learn, and I think that's where so many of us are in a victim mentality, right? Like people always say that they're like, how does that not bother you that your water's off or this or that? And I'm like, because I get to choose every day. Am I going to let this ruin my day or am I just going to move forward and say, nah, I bet I'm going to learn something from this, right? Like, I mean, it is what it is. We got to keep on keeping on, right?
Yep. Blessing in disguise somehow, right?
Yes.
Um, I
And
love
I
that.
think that's where the gratitude, like finding, hey, thankfully I have water normally. So it's only an inconvenience today, right? Instead of like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do all day? Right. It's just amazing how once you start grabbing your thoughts and really looking at them and deciding what you want to move forward with, you have that choice all the
Mhm.
time.
All the time. Yeah.
Mhm.
And I had much the same experience as you. I didn't realize that I was choosing all of those thoughts along the way, right? Like I just thought, and I thought the world was sort of happening to me instead of for me, and all those kinds of things. But and thoughts are just or beliefs are just thoughts that we've thought over and over and sort of practiced, like
Right. Create that rut, right?
yeah. And then it becomes a belief and we think that it's true because we've just thought it over and over and over. But, we can change that to the
Hmm.
opposite or whatever perspective. And then that becomes the belief.
Yeah.
And that is just really, really powerful. So how did you was it hard for you to hold yourself accountable to when you were in the midst of this change, right? Because you have to sort of get obsessive about your thoughts and being aware of them, right?
Hmm.
And changing them in the moment, right? Or at
Yep.
least that's how it was for me. What was your experience?
Yeah, I had to learn. So this was another thing I laughed at my original life coach. Like she's like, where do you get those feelings? I'm like, oh my gosh, what is wrong with you? What do you mean, where do I get these feelings? Right? Because she was like, is it a weight on your chest? Is it a fire in your stomach? Is it do your shoulders slump forward? Do you have a color? I was like, oh my gosh, you are too much for me, lady, right? But then I started realizing that there really are feelings associated, right? Like when you get scared, you get the in your stomach, or when you feel, um, stress, you might get a little weight on your shoulder, a little pressure on your chest. Like, and so when I started realizing those, I realized that must have been having a thought that's creating this feeling in my body, right? Like, and I was not. So anybody out there who's like, oh, feeling in my body, if you were like me, I get it. But like when you really start paying attention to yourself,
Yeah.
your body is sending you signals that you're stressed or you're scared or whatever. And it's because of the thoughts in your head, right? Like there's people who go skydiving every day and don't think twice about it. It's only because they got through their thoughts that heights are not a big deal. It's not a big deal. And then, I get up there and I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm going to do this. This freaks me out, right? Like they just chose a different path than me, right? I get to choose when I'm standing up there, am I going to be afraid or am I not, right? But our bodies send signals because of what we thought our entire lives, right? So I can change that. I can say, oh, heights aren't a big deal, but I mean, it's going to take a while because I've always felt like heights are a big deal. So I think it's just it's one of those things. And then you also have to remember when you change a thought, this was something else another person described to me and I loved it. So, like, if you picture a thought like this big cord, right? And there's other little cords plugged into it. So, you have all these little events in your life that have plugged into this cord, right? So, this cord of like heights are scary, right? So, there's this giant cord. And then, like, so sometimes when I started flying, I got a little scared. And sometimes when, I'm standing at the edge of the cliff. So, all these things have plugged into this main cord. So,
Yeah.
when I go try to rip that cord out, there's all these cords just hanging there, freaking out, right? Like they don't even know what to do. So you have to realize as you start changing your thoughts, you're gonna have moments where these fears and these things like become overwhelming because your body is going, well, your whole life you thought this, all these little events you had in your life are plugged into this cord and now they're just hanging there going, well, if you're not afraid of heights, like what about all these things that you experienced because you were afraid of heights, right? And this
Yeah.
is such a basic example. But so be aware of that. Know that this is not an easy path. It's like anything physical therapy. Think about it. When you first start, it's not too bad. Then it gets really painful, and then finally you're walking again, right? Like you're or whatever. I'm just thinking of an ankle or.
Right.
Um, so it's like you got to remember there's going to be a lot of pain in it. Like there's going to be a lot of emotions in it. There's going to be a lot of things as you're trying to grow that's going to make you feel like maybe you don't want to do this.
Yeah, I love that was very powerful, that analogy, or that example, because it can be scary. Like when you have all the things then are that are untethered from the big cord, then it's like scary because then it's like, well, what about this? And what about this? And what about that? And like if I believed all those things before, then what does it mean for all of those things? I am fucking scared.
Yeah. I just lost this major part of me. Now, what do all these events and feelings in my life mean?
Yep.
And you just have to realize you had control of them then. You just didn't know it. You had
Yeah.
control of that being afraid to fly or that being afraid to, stand on the edge. Like my husband will stand right on the edge of the Grand Canyon. I'm like, I'm not doing that. I'm crawling up and like peeking over, right? Like I still have that. It's it's just the difference in him and me. It's I could choose to be that or he could choose to be me. It's just his thoughts his whole life never made him afraid of heights and clearly mine did.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
you know, um so when you do that, yeah, just give yourself the other main thing I would say you guys, you got to have grace and compassion for yourself and others because others might not be on the journey. And as you start getting further along, it's going to be harder when you see people in those cycles, right? These negative cycles. But have compassion because you were there once too, and give yourself the grace that you're going to freak out and it's going to get hard and you're going to have emotions. But if you keep being authentically you, you're going to end up somewhere where you just like, I used to go to bed worried and stressed and thinking about everything. And I go to bed in peace with gratitude for what I have and where I'm going and everything in my life. And no matter what, you guys, I know there's people with really traumatic things happening to them. There's still something in your life to be grateful for, and you just got to find it. Some days, you might literally be like, I have air to breathe, and that's about all I can be grateful for right now. Right. Like they're just overwhelming feelings. So don't give yourself that grace and compassion on those days. And then other days, when you're feeling better, find all the things, write down all the things that are making you grateful because you might need that list one day.
Yeah, exactly. Keep it around. Yeah, to remind yourself.
Yeah.
And two, like just really quick going back to the scary part about, what do all those other things mean? And what does that mean for the rest of my life? You can just start saying, well, what if? If you can't shift the perspective to the opposite or a more positive thing and, like and convince yourself of that right away, then just say, well, going back to the heights, what if I'm not scared to fly on a plane? What if, and that's like something that can kind of make the path a little bit smoother, if that makes sense.
And yeah, and it's one at a time. So I'm not afraid of planes anymore. I was like, okay, I'm starting here. I love to travel. My life, I'm trying to set up my life by design where I get to travel when I want to travel. Okay. So I'm going to have to let this one go. So I'm starting here. Now you still put me at the edge of the Grand Canyon. I'm not standing on the edge. So you can start with one and plug that cord into a new thought and leave the other ones hanging there for a while. They can sit there. They can still kind of be like, you know what? I'm not there yet. So take it one at a time. And that's where the compassion and grace comes in, right? Is like I had to be like, in order for me to create my life by design, I'm going to have to get used to flying because I'm not going to make it to Italy swimming, right? Like it's not going to happen. And that would probably be even scarier. So, start with one of the cords and replug it in somewhere and start. So now I'm like, I get on a plane, we hit some turbulence. I used to grab hands and freak out. Now I'm just like, this is part of the ride. This is how I get where I'm going.
Yeah.
So, just keep plugging those cords into a different thought slowly but surely. And then eventually that thought won't be there. And like I said, because like me worried about what people think of me is long gone. I don't, somebody says something bad about me. I'm like, it's probably part true. And the other part is your issue, not mine. So I can move on from that, right? Like anybody that you don't like, it's probably a reflection of you. And you've got to figure out why that attribute is something that triggers you. So I always look at triggers now with all this work is like, okay, there's something I got to work on because I shouldn't be upset or I shouldn't be angry or I shouldn't be hurt. So if I am, I'm causing that. So what's causing that? What thought is in my head that I could maybe start to flip or change?
Isn't that just empowering too, to have that perspective and be able to go to recognize it and acknowledge it and be able to go, okay, and then to go internal and say, what's going on in here that makes me feel that way? Or even things that I resist the most, I recognize now, those are the things or the people I probably need the most.
Yes.
Yeah. Um,
Yes.
and so anything that I resist, I'm actually leaning into now. I've learned to lean in
Right.
because there's something there for me, either a lesson or some magic or something good in the unknown about that, that is really going to help me in my path. So
Yeah. And you might find something that you're like, oh man, I've been stifling this the whole time because I felt this or thought that. And it might be the thing that boosts you to the next level. Like, I wouldn't have thought I'd be doing a podcast. If you would have told me that 10 years ago, I'd be like, no way.
I know, me too. Even a year ago, I was like, no way. Yeah.
And look at you're sitting here doing it and you're gonna change. I think it comes back to your why too, like being authentically you is finding out your true, like, what do you want to do? Like, I had to realize I want people in direct sales to love what they do. I want them to see what I see in it and what so many others see and quit thinking about the few people who have had a bad experience that shout it from the rooftops. And I want to help women empower themselves and men too. It's more of a female based business, but um, and so once I found that that's what I wanted, I could let a lot of stuff go, because it wasn't like, I need this, I need that. It's like, I'm just here to help other people who want the same thing. Like, I just want to be able to help them through whatever hiccups I went through. Cause it took me years. Like I said, it took me 10 years. So if I can even shave one of those years off their journey, good, that'd be amazing.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So I
So
think going back to that why is a huge thing. Like, why are you really wanting to do what you want to do? You
yeah.
know, and like you found this path from where you were. I mean, I know we talked about it as a kid and everything you went through, and you're finding this amazing journey to be able to help other people figure out who they are without other people's influence, right? Like, you had a lot of influence on you as a child and not great influence, and you had to go find yourself. And I mean, that's just huge. And then once you did that, it's like, look at you flourishing and the beauty of you. And that's awesome. That's what
Aw.
I wish that for everyone, what you found and I found is being us is what makes us happy, but also changes our world around us, right?
Me too. I want that for everybody too. Really, really, I feel deeply about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, a couple minutes ago, you had said, not only giving grace and compassion to yourself, but to others, because as you start making these changes, then it's harder to be around some of the people that are in your life, who still have, the negative thought patterns and beliefs and things like that. And so, and this is so common, right? Like, to hear about how you can lose people along the way, friends and all of this. And so, do you know, did that happen to you with, friends, or like, what about your family, your kids? How did that all roll out?
So a couple of things there. Those are great questions. The first thing, I'm going to go to friends. I actually, did what a lot of people do and did some like pushing away. Um, and it was so beneficial. Like I needed the time and the space to figure myself out. I do wish that I would have had more compassion while doing it, because there's nothing, there's nothing wrong with the people around you. They're doing their best with what they've been giving. And that's what I try to remind myself. I'm doing the best with what I've been giving. Other people are doing the best with what they've been given. And so, I hear a lot of people like, just cut them out of your lives. And I'm like, yeah, absolutely. If they are draining you, mine weren't draining me. I needed more time to figure out where I was going and what I was doing and really focus on me for a little bit.
Yeah.
But just remember, um, that they're good people too. They were in your life for a reason. And so I wish I could go back and have a little bit more compassion in the way I did it, just to be honest. But really in the long haul, I know that it all had to happen the way it did. And I'm getting back to that. Like I still talk, to those friends, and I'm finding my way back to it, because we are allowed to make mistakes. And don't forget that, you guys, like just because you're on a growth journey, you're still going to make mistakes, right? Like I felt like I had to follow it by the letter of the law and cut people out and just really like do everything, but people are necessary, right? Like people are what, guide you and inspire you. And so I'm gonna, that's one of those things I learned along the way is like, so I've really been focusing on the compassion of understanding that people are going to come into your life that, like you said, Paula, aren't really where you are, but that's because they're on a different part of their journey and you were there once too. And there are people way ahead of you on their journey looking at you going, they might get there, but right now, like they're still really hard on themselves or whatever. And
Yeah.
I want them to have that compassion for me too. And so that was something I really had to find because I'm an empathetic person, but I'm not very sympathetic. And so I had to find some of that, like you have to let people have their own path too, right? And you get to have yours. So also, if you decide somebody is draining you, you are allowed to make decisions and move forward. But what I really found that I just kind of wanted to show you that you are still going to make mistakes. So please also find compassion for yourself when you do something and you look back on it and go, maybe that wasn't the exact way it had to happen. It's okay. That's part of your journey too, right? We're going to learn.
I
Um,
needed to hear that so much today. So thank you so much.
oh,
We're very similar in kind of what you just described. And I love that you said that. Thank you.
Oh, and you're allowed to say, "Hey, I did that wrong.
Yeah.
I apologize." Like, right? What we are allowed to be, we are human. We have flaws. so
Yeah.
so allow yourself to be human. But then also as you grow, so like you asked about my husband and my kids, and like, gosh, as I started changing my ways, we all did. Like there was a lot more yelling. And I'm not gonna lie, when I was in a more victim mentality. There was a lot of yelling, like, why are you doing that? Get pick your shoes up, do this, where are you? And I
Yeah.
had to be like, the shoe on the ground doesn't matter. Like, if I'm yelling at my kids all the time, then they're gonna yell at me and we're gonna have this. And so I also really found how to accept people for who they are. So much of our well, we all know this, right? Like our brains tell us whoever you're around, you need to be exactly like because you need to be accepted. Because if you're not, they're gonna leave you and you're gonna die in the woods because we used to be cavemen, right? Like, so this is like this inner struggle in your brain is saying, don't make sure you act like these people and make sure that's why you are the five people you surround yourself with, because whoever you're around you're trying, have you ever noticed friends who start hanging out with new friends and they start dressing different? Because it's not on purpose. It's just what your brain does. Your brain is programmed to make you accept it
Yeah.
because that's what we needed a long, long time ago. We're in a whole new land now. You don't need that anymore. But again, like that rut, our brain doesn't just let that go. Our brain doesn't just go, oh, no, you're fine. Just go do it. So as I started changing myself and accepting my kids for who they were and not trying to make them me, I also realized that half of what I was putting on them, like, you need to do that, you need to go out with your friends, you need to whatever it was my own insecurities. I had things happen to me as a kid, and now I'm putting it on them. Like, I don't want you to feel what I felt. Well, they got to figure out their stuff and they got to be them, and their amazing qualities are very different than mine. And so as you start accepting people around you for who they are and quit trying to put your shit on them, all of a sudden, people get along a lot better.
Right. That is so beautifully said. Because I went through the same experience with my kids too, Adrienne, with, me putting my stuff on them for like years and years and years. Cause my, this whole growth journey for me is just really recent in the last few years. And they're like 16 and 18 now. So, like for years and years, I was putting my shit on them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm finally in the last couple of years, getting to, to the place where I just accept them. Like they need their journey too. And when I put my shit on them or try to, whatever, save them from something because I don't want them to feel a certain way or whatever, like I'm literally stealing their journey away from them, their growth that their soul needs, right, to go through. And I mean, I'm not saying I'm there all the way, like I still
Oh,
have work to do for sure, especially with my wife, but, and my kids too.
right.
But that's really, it's a powerful thing.
It is. And like, so one, I'll just give you a quick example. Um, I don't have any anxiety. I sort of fly by the seat of my pants. I'm a little bit flighty and a little bit flaky, and I love
Love
myself
it.
for it, right?
Love it.
And so, I don't really stress about a lot of things. I kind of have, even when I had the victim mentality, I was still like, yeah, well, yeah, I'm not happy about this, but whatever. My daughter suffers from anxiety, and I didn't know this. We were talking, and we were standing in line for what do you call it? A roller coaster at Disney. And we were talking the whole time. She's talking to me, not a big deal. We get up there, she starts crying. I was like, what is going on? What is happening right now? The whole time she was stressing about going on this ride. And I didn't see any of it because she was just acting. But inside, there was this conversation going on in her head that she wasn't sharing with me. Not because she didn't want to, but I think she shuns herself, right? Like a lot of people with anxiety are like, I shouldn't feel this way. So her and I got to sit down and have this amazing talk, right? And now I talk with her about it all the time and accept her for because like in the beginning, again, I wanted to be like, stop it. Oh my God, who cares? It's not a big deal. Like, what are you doing? But that's not the way her brain works. And if I keep shoving my crap on her, that's why she's not telling me, right? Like, she's like, mom's going to be like, what are you talking about? I wasn't even thinking, like, honestly, I was so into talking about what we were talking about, I forgot we were standing in line, right? Like, I'm not even thinking about the roller coaster because that's the way my brain works. And hers works differently. And so once I started loving her and accepting her for all of this, our relationship is on a whole new level because
Yeah.
I'm not stuffing my let it go on her. And I'm also going, oh wow, there are more people in this world that feel the way she does. When I'm sitting here just like blah, like, being me, they're having other conversations in their head. So I could find more of that compassion for other people when I didn't necessarily know I had to, right? In my victim state where I was just worried about me, I was only in my head. And so I think that that's another thing is when you can start having these bigger conversations, accepting people for who they are and listening to what's going on with them, all of a sudden you recognize like there's so many different people out there and that's what makes this beautiful, right? Like they don't have to be me. Sydney, my daughter, doesn't have to be me to be accepted by me. So that's us fighting our brain again, right? Like I'm allowed to accept people who are not like me. We also have to force ourselves to understand that as well, because our brain is still saying, no, 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 you're all supposed to be alike. You're all supposed to be in this tribe doing the same thing.
Right.
And so as I've expanded my tribe to people who are not like me, like you said, finding people who have different qualities, it really helps you grow as a person too, to be able to see the beauty and in the differences.
Right. Right. Oh my gosh. Like this is just everything that you're saying, Adrienne, is like a gem. I just,
Oh, thanks.
yeah. I mean, I think this has been such an incredible conversation. So much wisdom and gold nuggets for people. And I just love your personality. Like, I gotta say, like, and I love that you fly by the seat of your pants, like
I
fairy
do.
energy kind of, like
I do. So if you ever have an appointment with me and 5 minutes before I'm like, what are we talking about? Just
yeah.
know that that's not because I don't care about you. That's just the way I roll.
Right on to that. Right on
Isn't
to
it funny? I mean, and that's the beauty. But I've really enjoyed getting, to know you, and I love that you're bringing this to people because I think it's what people need, right? Like I love your title because
right.
we all are scared as fuck. We just are. And everything we do, and no matter how easy it looks, you look at the most famous people out there and they tell you these stories of them still being scared when they go on stage, or I think it's Beyonce who has to create, doesn't isn't it? Yeah, I think it's her that creates her own person, like a separate personality, and that's who she is on stage, right? And then she's her. Um, anyway, like even famous people have this, so like don't think that people are just doing it not scared as fuck. They are.
Right. Right. And that scariness and that uncomfortableness, no matter like what the growth is that you go through, no matter how much you expand and grow and go through this and are living authentically, I don't know that fear and that uncomfortableness ever goes away, right? Like it's always going to be there. It's just you learning how to dance with it differently, right?
Yes.
To not let it hold you back from doing anything, because I mean that's how I lived all my life. I'm in my early 50s now, and like this is, like I said, just to get recent for me. And I always let my fears and uncomfortableness like totally hold me back, and now I'm just
Mhm.
like dancing with it differently.
Yeah. And like you said, those things they might go away a little bit, right? Like the first time you did your podcast, you're super nervous. And like I'm 2 years in. And so now I don't even get nervous, but all of a sudden I'll have a guest or something will happen and I'll get nervous again. And I'm like, oh yeah, there's that feeling. Oh my goodness. Like, and it shows up in other things, like other things I'm doing. I'm like, oh, there's that scared. Like, I got you. Okay. And like you said, now you use it to your advantage, right? Instead of being like, oh my gosh, you're like, oh, this is a growth moment for me. Like,
And now I know what's going to be on the other side of that, and it's going to be phenomenal. So we're doing it, baby.
right. And then, like I said, and then you got to give yourself the grace that if it's not phenomenal, you learn something because that's what
Yep.
happens every time.
Yep. And who cares what everybody thinks anyway, huh?
Right. Right. Well, and you have to realize that too. Half the people are just thinking about themselves anyway. They're not even worried about you. So that was the other
Exactly.
thing that made me feel better. I'm like, people are so worried about what people think of them. Half the time they're not even thinking a thing about you. So
Right. They're so focused on what does everybody think about me, right? So
exactly.
I love it. I love it. So much goodness. So Adrienne, how do people find you?
So I have like Yo Adrienne Talks is my podcast. So I'm on
Oh,
all
I
the main
love that.
places, Apple, Spotify, all the places. So you can find me there. If you're on Facebook, I also have a Facebook community for my direct sellers out there. So anybody that's in direct sales or know somebody, please throw them in there. We talk, like I said, we talk a little bit about the business side and a little bit about the mindset and how they all work together. So love to have people in there. And if you're looking for super easy meals and dinner, Your Simple Meals is my group on Facebook as well. And I post recipes all the time, just easy meals. So you can find me there too. So
Right on. Right
yeah.
on. I love that. Yo, Adrienne Talks. You know what it reminds me of? Um, so when my kids and I would like play an online game, we started playing an online game, not like anyway, not like a shoot 'em up or anything like
Yeah.
that, but like this
Yeah.
fun thing. And this was several years ago now. And so we all had to sign in with our own like, name. And I
Yeah.
always put yo mama.
Oh, I love that. Well, it's actually funny because my whole life, again, I fought, I would get all the Sylvester Stallone impressions you could possibly imagine when I would tell people my name's Adrienne, right? I'd get the yo, Adrienne. And I was like,
Yeah.
I would get embarrassed. I'm like, why am I embarrassed? They're the ones that look ridiculous. Like, and so when I was doing my podcast, kind of exactly what you're talking about, it was something that triggered me. I was finally like, I'm going to accept this, right? Like, this is a beautiful thing. I get to watch people talk crazy and yell at me. I mean, it's amazing. Like when I could step back and quit worrying about what people thought of people screaming my name and actually watch this shit show around me ensue, I was like, this is so fun. Like, I love watching people try to do this. This is great. So it's like, it goes back to like those things that trigger you. It's just something that probably as a kid, I was embarrassed when people would scream my name across the gymnasium, you know? And
Yeah.
now I'm like, do it, go farther, yell
Ah,
it louder. Let's see. Let's start videotaping every time people do it. So it was one of those, like, just like we're talking about, I just had to realize that it was just something that probably triggered me when I was a kid, and now it's actually really fun to watch. So,
own it, own it. I love
right.
it so, so
Okay.
much. Again, this has been so awesome, so much more awesome than I thought that expected, which is thank you, universe.
Yes.
Um, and thank you again for being on.
Thank
And
you
I would
for
really
having
like to
me,
stay
Paula.
connected.
Yes, absolutely. And I would love, again, anybody, following your podcast, I'm going to be following it too. So I can't wait to get to know people in your podcast and that are trying to, find themselves. Like, I will help support. Paula knows what she's doing and she is on it. And, um, it's a beautiful thing as you start that journey. So I'm excited to watch all your listeners create this journey with you too. So I will be there with you. And yes, definitely keep in touch. And thank you so much for inviting me on here, Paula. This was such a great talk. And I take a lot away too from your story and where you've been. And it's just been a blessing to have met you.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much.
Of course.
And
Of
I'm
course.
jumping in your Facebook group too, if I'm not already.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Please do.
right on. All right. Love you.
Love you too. See ya.
Isn't she fun and real and down to earth, like I said? I really enjoyed her honesty about everything that she shared and just how relatable she is. And I would love to hear what you think too. So let me know what you got out of the conversation. Okay, here are the takeaways. Number one, holding on to something as a safety net is basically a way to delay your ability to fly. Number two, you are allowed to do what you love in your life, regardless of what other people think. And if somebody doesn't like it, that's great. They don't have to. Be there for the people who do like it. Number three, go out and share what you love. Number four, turning to gratitude is a powerful game changer to get out of the victim mindset. Number five, if someone wants to leave you out, let them leave you out. Focus on the people who don't leave you out. Number six, we are well practiced in our mindsets and beliefs all the way from when we were kids. So changes aren't going to happen overnight. They happen as we create, practice, and deepen new neural pathways. Small changes and practices become a fully changed life. Number seven, remember to give yourself grace along the way as you are learning new ways of thinking and being. It's hard work. Number eight, you have to be the one to change and save yourself. No one is coming to save you. Number nine, hiring a life coach is working with the whole of your life, the balance of everything going on. You will need different people at different times in your life. Number 10, be authentically you, and the people who are meant for you, either personally or in business, will be attracted to you. Number 11, a thought is just a thought. You get to decide if you take it with you or leave it behind. You get to choose your thoughts every day. Number 12, your body is sending you signals based on the thoughts in your head. Listen. Number 13, have grace and compassion for yourself and others as you change your mindset and grow. 14, even though you are on a growth journey, you're still going to make mistakes. You're allowed to say, I did that wrong. 15, let people have their own paths, just like you want to have yours. Accept people for who they are. 16, when you rise, the people around you rise too. 17, you are the 5 people you surround yourself with. This happens because we used to be tribal, so our brains are programmed to make us be like the people that we're around so that we're accepted, because that's what we needed a long time ago. Although I will say we are evolving. 18, everyone is scared as fuck, and the fear and uncomfortableness doesn't go away. We just learn how to dance with it differently and not let it hold us back. There you go. Loved them. There were a lot of them, but I didn't want to leave any out. Okay, now for this little ad promo for Mudwater, the morning warm drink that I love. I drink shrooms for breakfast. Mudwater is a coffee replacement drink made with mushrooms that I switched over to a few years ago when I was kicking all of my addictions, including caffeine. And I always thought I used to have low-level anxiety, and it turns out it was just the coffee I was drinking. Like, I would always get super nervous speaking in front of the higher ups at my corporate job and in front of any group of people, really. And when I kicked coffee and started drinking one mud water, I literally gave a presentation to a leader, one down from the CEO at Wells Fargo, and didn't have that nervous feeling that day because I wasn't drinking coffee. It's fucking amazing. I love the Rise cacao blend. It tastes like cacao and chai had a baby. It's super yummy with a little oat milk and honey. It's organic, it's healthy, it tastes good, and it gives you natural energy instead of the jitters or crash with coffee. The cool thing is Mudwater is hooking up my listeners with a special offer. If you go to mudwater.com/Paula Schuster, you get started for $29 plus my $5 off discount means you get started for less than $1 a day. And that's mudwtr.com/PAULASCHUSTER. And I'll put a link in the show notes too. It was really fucking cool hanging out with you today, and I look forward to next week on the Scared as Fuck and Doing It Anyway podcast. Life gets so busy sometimes and we get tired, and I'm just super fucking grateful for you for spending some of your precious time here. Thank you again. I hope my podcast helps you in some way. I hope it inspires you. I hope it fills you up, sheds new light on things, gives you new perspective, something. I hope it adds a positive aspect to your life. And I hope this particular episode helps you find and choose gratitude in your everyday life. I would love to hear from you. I would love to connect with you. It's really one of the reasons why I started this podcast in the first place, is because I'm looking for connection and community with people. So reach out and tell me what you liked about the podcast, or don't tell me what you didn't like, or don't tell me anything about the podcast, and let's just connect and meet. I would love that. You can always reach me at paula@reikiflowmn.com. It would be totally cool if you left a review for the podcast. I would really appreciate that. It fills my heart, and reviews are just the freaking best because they help others find the podcast, and it literally helps the podcast keep going. You can also leave ratings on Spotify, and they help a ton too. And so I would just really appreciate that. Remember to follow along on whatever platform you're listening on, Apple, Spotify, all the places. And we have a lot of really incredible episodes coming up. And please download, follow, or subscribe. You'll always be notified then of new episodes. And that's another thing that helps the podcast keep going, because it's all about, numbers and algorithms and stuff like that. And if you know anyone who would like this episode or benefit from it, or any of the episodes, please share it with them. Text them, send them a link. If you're feeling extra generous, post about it on your socials. That would be cool. And just remember, you're always welcome to reach out to me at paula@reikiflowmn.com with anything, just to connect, to meet, with questions. If there's someone you want to be on the podcast, let me know. If you want to be on the podcast, reach out and let me know. And let's do it. All right. I love you all so much. Peace out.